Thank you for participating in our 2024 WhistleStop Candidate Hobnob. By purchasing a video interview, you have allowed our chamber to educate the citizens of Polk County about the upcoming election and the issues and candidates on the ballot. Thank you. Since your campaign has purchased this video interview, the Florida Division of Elections does require you to close the fact with the following statement.
I'm Andrea Doria Kale, a Democrat running for the United States House of Representatives in Florida's Congressional District 18. This video was paid for by my principal campaign committee, Andrea Doria Kale for Congress.
All righty, let's begin. So first, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm a mother. I'm a stepmother and a grandmother of 6. I grew up in your typical, American working class family household in Long Island, New York. There was, my brother, my father, my mother, and myself. And, we were living or trying to live the American dream in the 1960s and 70s. My parents both worked. My mother was a legal secretary. My father was the foreman at a welding company in the Bronx. And he was a World War II vet. My mother was an only child. She was born in the Depression. But they were able to buy the family a home in 1962, and I had a wonderful childhood, just like you used to see on TV. And our grandmother, she pretty much took care of us because both my parents worked, and I spent my summers with her other grandchildren, my 3 older boy cousins and my brother and I, in a little rural town called Perkiomenville, Pennsylvania. So I'm a little bit suburbia, a little bit rural, and in my adult life, suburban and, city life. So that's my background growing up. As far as my young adulthood, I worked for 37 years for a not-for-profit, primarily funded by the National Institutes on Health, to study any kind of health-related issue to substance and alcohol abuse. And people know the National Institutes of Health most recently because of the work of Dr. Fauci and the pandemic. I worked with Dr. Fauci. I met him several times when we had the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s. I began my work and ended my career in 1979 when I was 21. So I started out as a researcher. I worked my way up through the ranks and ultimately became part of administration as IT director. And one of the things I did working my way up along the way was I organized a union in my workplace. In the late 1980s, I was the union president, the local president, an executive board member. The parent unions were the American Federation of Teachers and Service Employees National Unit, SEIU. I served on their executive board. I negotiated 3 labor contracts, which even management loved. Being on soft money, federal grants, the lower level employees didn't enjoy the same things that management would, where their jobs were based, if it was a 2-year grant, you were laid off. And, I brought seniority and other benefits, or healthcare benefits, and the things that unions typically do. And it worked really well. Unfortunately, they were founded in 1967. I retired in 2016, and they closed their doors, unfortunately, in 2019, just before the pandemic, which would have been a great study for us. But they were around, they were the biggest of its kind in the country for what we did. We had international studies. So I have a lot of background in public health, working for a not-for-profit, a lot of government interaction with the funding. And then after my retirement, while I was always involved in politics and government and had my, I was like a student since I was 9 years old and interested in running for the US House of Representatives. I was very influenced. So, I did a lot of volunteer work in that regard, but I actually had a job as the statewide Deputy Operations Director for the 2016 presidential campaign for Hillary Clinton. I was her Deputy Operations Director up in Tampa and her statewide IT Director. So I'm familiar with all of Florida. I made my homestead in Florida in 2015. And I still had my home in New York, but that became my second home. So I'm in Florida for 9 years, and this was also my parents' dream. Neither one of them lived out of their 50s, unfortunately, but my grandmother's sister lived in St. Petersburg, and they always wanted to settle there after their retirement. And initially, that's where I had been looking for a home, but I settled here where I am because circumstances in 2015, I couldn't quite afford that house in St. Petersburg, but here I am and very happy. And I love Florida, and I want to make Florida great again. So that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. Perfect.
People can read more on my website, AndreaDoriaKale.com.
Awesome. All right. My next question for you is, what is the biggest opportunity for your district in this next legislative session?
I see the biggest opportunity because I've had some concerns since the legislation for the Infrastructure and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. There was a lot of money set aside for Florida. And I don't see things that were targeted and the projects, I don't see them happening as much especially District 18 is 8 counties, and they're very diverse. We have agriculture, we have agricultural farming and dairy, and I mean, you name it, we got it. And it's a huge district. It's brand new since 2023, since redistricting. Actually, Congressional District 17 and 18, it was 17 was 9 counties. So they kind of split it off, into one. It became a brand new district, never existed before. And it encompasses a lot of what 17 was, So I see a lot of crumbling roads, like 27, for example. I'm wondering, where is that, that infrastructure money for roads, bridges, transportation, where is it going? Why isn't it going in our district? I've heard a lot of people complain about 27. I drive on 27. It's a disaster. And then there's the other piece, with the hurricanes. I was personally affected. My home was practically destroyed in Hurricane Ian. There's the biggest climate initiative in the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest of its kind that we've ever done. We're leading now as far in the world. And there's lots of money there too for projects to protect homes and do all sorts of things. And I don't really see that happening either. So I'm wondering, there's all sorts of influence over that, both county commission levels, but our US representative also plays a big part in, bringing those projects in and saying, well, why aren't we doing this and why aren't we doing, and talking with the local county commissioners about how to utilize that money. So that's I see as, the greatest thing that I can bring to the district. It also is going to create jobs. We really don't have a lot of industry. It's become the place people retire, but also families. There's a lot of, Polk County is the fastest growing county in the United States currently. So, you want to have job opportunities for young working class families, and that's not happening fast enough. So, yeah, that's what I want to do for my district.
Perfect. All right. That kind of ties into our next question. What are your top 2 or 3 priorities if elected?
Okay, well, now we're going to take it on a bigger level, because remember I talked about being a negotiator. We have to find common grounds in Congress. I think I'm a great person for finding common ground, shared values. We all want the same things. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. Okay, I'm a grandmother now. I want my grandchildren to have the same opportunities that I had growing up. Okay, everybody wants that. Okay, but how do you get it now with where we're so divided? We're not willing to sit down. Like, we had a deal. We had a deal on border security and immigration. It was a great deal for everybody. You don't always get everything you want. But my experience with negotiating and working with other people all my life, I've done this. You get what you need if you work at it, if you talk and you listen. And most of all, we have to listen to the people, what the people want, because we represent the people in the United States House of Representatives. We are the closest representative on the federal level to the people. It's in the Constitution. That's what we do. So I've been listening to the people. I'm listening to people all over the United States. And, people feel like we're going backwards. Yes, we declared independence in 1776, but are we fulfilling that promise of the Declaration of Independence? Liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everybody. I mean, at that time, it was only white wealthy landowners that could vote and everything else. But that's what the 9th Amendment is for. Our forefathers couldn't anticipate where we would be today. There was no Air Force. There was, we weren't traveling into outer space. We were 13 states. That was it. So, a lot has happened since then. And that's what the 9th Amendment is for. That was to anticipate the growth of our country and to make it life and liberty for all. Liberty, freedoms, our fundamental basic freedoms. So that's my platform. And across the board, every state, yes, states would still control elections, but the Freedom to Vote Act that was initially sponsored in 2019 under the previous presidential administration, and then it was brought forward into the Senate and given over to one of our more conservative senators to work across the aisle. Voter ID, yes, security, election security is important, but we have the most secure election in history in 2020. And both parties said it, our security people said it, and this would give, like I said, a little bit to everybody and make it, we should be making it easier for people to vote, not so their voices can be heard. We have to fulfill that promise. We have to shore up our basic democratic republic, because we're a democratic republic. We're not a quote, pure democracy. I mean, eventually, I think we could work towards that, where we know we abolish the electoral college and, we elect a president, and then they'd have to come to every state. And we'd all really, truly have a say, but it's baby steps. And the most important foundational step is getting a level playing field across the board for everybody, regardless of your party, the color of your skin, your religion, whatever it is, male, female, LGBTQ. Everybody should have a level playing field for how we vote, how we get registered to vote. And that would really, truly bring people together and change the dynamic and get people talking and get back to just when we would argue about policy, what the budget is, and all those normal things that I grew up with. I didn't grow up like this. My mother was a Republican and my father was a Democrat, and I never heard them fight about anything. We all want the same things. It's shared values. So all our basic fundamental freedoms, the right to vote, that's our democracy. We must shore it up. We must shore it up.
Perfect. All right. What do you consider the biggest challenge of the position you are running for?
Pretty much the same thing. Bringing people together, just listening to what people want, what people's concerns are, and bringing it back to Congress with me, because I'm going to represent the people of 18. And if the majority of the people in 18, and that would include, I would be elected to represent people of every party, not just the Democratic Party. And I would represent their interests as well. So if the majority of people are telling me, for example, I'll give an example. Most Americans want, we don't want to take people's guns away. It's besides, the horse is out of the barn. That's not happening. But most people agree that there should be in every state, like I said, that base, there should be universal. Every state should be required to do a background check. There are states that don't, like Missouri. And then you get the problem of these rogue people, going to other states and then coming into the states that have stricter laws. And then we're seeing our children. It's the number one killer of our children in this gun violence. It overtook, traffic accidents. And that is really, really sad. And we all care about the future of our children. So why can't we agree? I mean, it makes no sense. You can own a rifle, okay, and boost it up to become almost an automatic weapon at the age of 18, but you can't own a handgun till you're 21. Something got missed in that picture. I know in the state of Florida, it's both 21, but not in every other state. And that's what I was talking about. So you have to have, the bottom. Everybody has to do this. And then you have your individual states' rights. Okay, then that's where that comes in. Some may want to make it just a little bit, because inner cities, they're more crowded. So, people don't hunt in inner cities. So, there has to be different, rules. I mean, that's just common sense. But I believe that, I'm a gun owner. I'm a responsible gun owner. When I became, my homestead in Florida, that's what I did. I have and I don't believe in permit. You need a license To drive a car, you should need a license to own a gun. You should take a safety course. I had to do it. Now that's changed in Florida. I disagree with that. So that's a good example. That's going to be the biggest, that is the biggest challenge we all face as representatives, whether you're currently serving in Congress or you want to serve in Congress. We have to talk. We have to bring people together. We have to represent the majority of the people's will, not the minority of the people's will. That's my position.
Perfect. And our last question for today, why should voters choose you over the other candidates?
Because I am the representative that is going to bring people together. Start getting back to when we're not glued to the news. We don't see on one media, people storming the border, and then on another one, we see them, the rest of the video where they're surrendering themselves to the border police. We're going to get back to norms. I want this country desperately, before I die, to get back to norms, to get to having, bringing up, obviously, elevating the poor, giving them not a handout, a hand up. I believe in universal pre-K. There's so many studies that have been done, how important early education is in, how far you'll go in life. Now, I should have went to college. Unfortunately, my grandmother who raised me died 10 months before my father when I was 16. My father died when I was 17. Before, right after I graduated high school. I didn't have the same opportunity as my brother. Okay. He got his college paid for by my parents. I had to do that on my own. I tried to go back later on in life. So I'm self-made. I'm self-educated. I was a straight A student. I was reading on the 7th grade reading level in the 1st grade. Okay. So everything I did, I was fortunate to work for a company that, helped to pay for my furthering my education. And that's what I did. And that's how I achieved the success that I am now. But the biggest challenge is giving people like me and our future generations better opportunities to achieve their goals. Like a big thing right now is that little thing in 1998 when Clinton signed in, the education law, where, the grants and everything else. Oh yeah, it was a wonderful thing, except for that one clause where it says that you can't discharge your debt through bankruptcy. Well, guess what? People that are doctors that can't even afford to be doctors that are paying off their student debt. It all went haywire somehow. And there's got to be some compromise, some resolution to that. A lot of the people that speak now, it wasn't that pre-1998. So what do? We want them to become teachers and doctors and lawyers and successful people, but then they can't afford to raise a family and buy a home. There's some disconnect there. So what I'm talking about is no handouts, hand up, and let's talk about how we achieve that. So this is our greatest challenge right now. And we've become so entrenched in these culture wars and, we're being invaded. And no, that's really not happening. That's an exaggeration. We still are what we were, but we're so lost in the mud. It's really just, it's almost heartbreaking for me at times to see, the mudslinging and the nonsense that goes on. You know, you were grown-ups, you're in Congress, you were elected to do a job, not in, you know, these phony investigations or whatever. Let's do the business of the government. Let's do what the people elected us to do. And that's what I fully intend to do if I'm chosen. I can't, you know, I don't, you know, I have basic fundamental disagreements with our current congressman. He believes in Life and Second Act, which basically my three of my four grandchildren, biological grandchildren, because I have two step grandchildren, they would not have been born if Scott Franklin had his way. They were IVF babies, okay? So I don't believe the government should have any say-so over anybody's bodily autonomy. And I don't care if you're male, I don't care what you are. Government, once upon a time, you know, and people say abortion, it's a dirty word. People have to, it's technically an abortion. If a woman miscarries, okay, they have to clean out all that garbage. Otherwise, she's going to get septic and die, okay? That is the same exact medical procedure if you have a medical procedure. Most abortions are chemical. Women take a pill and it's almost as if you miscarry. But a miscarriage, sometimes it needs to be cleaned out of there in order for the woman's health, and she can go on and reproduce and start her family, you know, just the way she imagines when she was a little girl, like most of us do, you know. So, you know, it's not a dirty word. It's about our personal freedom. It's about our, you know, we are not equal citizens. I want to get the Equal Rights Amendment, and it's not the Women's Equal Rights Amendment in the US Constitution. That is gender equality. You know, back in the day, women couldn't have a bank account without their husbands signing on. So, you know, we all are equal citizens. That was the promise of the United States. And that is my focus. That is my promise. That's what differentiates me from both my primary candidate. He has no detail whatsoever on his website, no plan for how to achieve these things. And I have a completely opposite vision of our current sitting congressman. But I am willing to discuss these things with other congressmen in the other party, should I be elected by the people to serve. And I hope that I have earned your vote. Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time with us and sharing your time. We can't wait to see you at WhistleStop. And with that, I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you, and God bless America and our veterans and our troops.
Perfect.
So long.
Thank you.